This story begins in the deserts of Mongolia, East Asia's largest desert. A company had arrived here intending to extract oil. However, their information was wrong. There was no oil. So now everyone is returning. To take them back, a plane has been sent, piloted by a man named Frank, along with his co-pilot. They are supposed to take all the equipment and employees back to Beijing. Everyone boards the plane, and they set off toward Beijing. But soon, a massive sandstorm starts in the desert. Frank's co-pilot asks what they should do. Frank says if they go back, they'll have to wait for fuel, which they don't currently have, and he doesn't know how long that will take, so they must move forward. Frank ascends the plane higher to escape the storm, but the plane is overloaded. They get caught in the storm and try to contact via radio, but fail. One of the engines fails due to the sand. Frank says he'll have to make an emergency landing and begins descending. But the landing isn't easy, as visibility is zero. As the plane descends, its rear part hits a rock, opening the back door. One passenger falls out and dies. The plane slides further across the desert. When it stops, they discover 2 more passengers have died. They can't go outside because the storm is still raging. Once the storm calms, they see the entire plane is buried under sand. But after a few hours, the wind clears the sand, and the plane becomes visible again. They come out and check their food supplies. They have enough for 1 month. One man says he wants to walk out of the desert. They estimate it's a 200-mile journey to get out, but they don't know their exact location, and the radio isn't working. The man insists he can do it. He's run marathons, gone hiking and trekking. He is told it's July, the hottest month in the desert. 1 glass of water turns into sweat and leaves the body as 10 glasses. He says he'll travel only at night. But he's warned that the magnetic hills here will render his compass useless, and he'll keep walking in circles. Realizing the danger, he abandons the idea. That same night, while everyone is sleeping inside the plane, a man named Davis goes outside to use the toilet. On the way back, he trips on a rock and rolls down into the sandstorm, losing his way. Despite calling for help, no one hears him. In the morning, everyone notices Davis is missing. They search but find nothing. He's been buried in the sand. This deeply upsets everyone. A woman goes to Frank and asks how likely it is that someone will come to rescue them. Frank says there's only a 5% chance and it's too risky to leave. They have very limited food and water, enough for just 2 days if they start walking, and none of them would survive. Despite the low chance of rescue, Frank prefers to stay and wait, remaining optimistic. But outside, hope among the group begins to fade. 2 people decide to leave, taking some water. Frank says no one can take water, leading to a scuffle and spilled water. A man named Elliot approaches them with an idea. He's been observing the plane for days and believes they can rebuild it into a new aircraft. Frank asks what he knows about planes. Elliot reveals that he used to design aircraft, although no one really knew him well because he wasn't part of the oil company, but had joined them 2 years ago. Everyone is shocked but also hopeful. They agree to rebuild the plane. Frank doesn't agree and clearly refuses. The next morning, a man named James leaves. The woman wants to follow him, but Frank says he'll go. Frank finds the hill where the rear of the plane had crashed and sees the body of the passenger who fell, now stripped of clothes and surrounded by bullet casings. James arrives and explains someone else had already been there. He had come to retrieve his watch, which he had lost in a poker game to the dead man, but the watch is gone. They realize smugglers had come, taken the watch, and used the body for target practice. Frank tells James to return, but James refuses. He asks Frank why he won't let them rebuild the plane. Frank says he doesn't want to give them false hope. James responds that everyone wants love, and if you can't give them that, give them hope. And if not that, let them do what they want. Hearing this, Frank agrees to help despite not believing it will work. They return and begin rebuilding the plane. They can't work during the day because of the heat, so they work at night. But disaster strikes when welding sparks ignite their fuel supply, causing an explosion. Thankfully, no one dies, but all their fuel is destroyed. They now have just enough fuel for 1 attempt to take off. Since they can no longer use it for welding at night, they switch to working during the hot days. They persist and manage to rebuild the plane's body. The final step is attaching a wing, and they have only 1 chance. If it falls, they can't lift it again without a crane. As they lower the wing, the chain breaks. It crashes toward the plane, but miraculously lands in the perfect position. A teammate inside confirms the wing is secured. With the frame complete, everyone celebrates and begins preparing the sand to create a runway. But then, an electric storm strikes. Lightning begins hitting all around, and one wing still contains petrol. Everyone runs away, except Elliot, who refuses to leave the plane. Just as lightning is about to strike him, Frank grabs and pulls him away, saving his life. Without Elliot, no one else can finish the plane. They named the plane Phoenix, inspired by the mythical desert bird from Egyptian mythology, believed to rise again with power. But they still have work left to do, and now their water is running out. One night, from a sand dune, they spot people far away camping with tents. These are armed smugglers transporting weapons across borders via the desert. Frank wants to ask them for water, though Elliot disagrees. Still, Frank and a few others go, hiding behind rocks in case of danger. Frank, James, and a few others cautiously approach the smugglers' camp. They notice the smugglers are heavily armed. Frank decides to go alone while the others stay hidden. He walks into the camp with his hands raised, showing he's unarmed. Frank speaks politely, asking for water. The smugglers are suspicious and hostile. One of them points a gun at Frank, demanding to know who he is and what he's doing there. Frank tries to explain their plane crashed and they have no water left. He offers a watch and some personal belongings in exchange. One smuggler is about to shoot Frank, but the leader of the group intervenes. The leader sees no threat and gives Frank a small canister of water, just enough to keep a few people alive. Frank thanks them and leaves quickly, avoiding further conflict. Back at the crash site, Frank shares the water. Morale is low, but the group keeps working on the plane. The fuel tank is ready, the wings are attached, and the runway is somewhat leveled. The time has come for the final test. They all board the rebuilt plane, now named Phoenix. Frank takes the pilot seat again. There's silence and tension. Everyone knows if the plane doesn't take off, they're all going to die in the desert. Frank starts the engine. It roars to life. The plane starts moving forward slowly across the makeshift runway. They pick up speed, but a small dune ahead threatens to ruin the takeoff. Frank pulls up hard. The plane lifts slightly, then dips, but finally ascends into the sky. Cheers erupt from everyone on board. They've done it. Phoenix is flying. After several hours, they spot civilization. Frank contacts air traffic control. A rescue team is dispatched. The group is finally safe. Later, Elliot reveals something amusing and shocking. He wasn't an actual aircraft engineer. He designed model airplanes. But the principles, he explains, are the same. Everyone laughs in disbelief. Frank shakes his head, smiling. Elliot's belief and bravery saved them all. Phoenix becomes a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of belief.